People normally associate the word with religion with belief in a god. However, the original Latin word from which the English word derives is religare, which means to tie up or bind up repeatedly. It referred to the ritual in ancient Rome in their various temples when a person had their hands wrapped in a white cloth by a priest or priestess in a temple, signifying that the devotee was making a covenant or a commitment to a particular god or goddess, and that goddess or god in turn was making a commitment to them. This ritual was taken into Christianity later, as were many other customs from Roman and Greek and indigenous religions. And it appeared in two early sacraments of the Christian church. In the traditional ordination of a priest, the bishop would wrap the young man's hands in white cloth, signifying his permanent dedication to the service of God. In the sacrament of matrimony, the ritual in the Eastern Orthodox Church to this day includes the priest binding the hands of the man and the woman together to symbolize their permanent commitment to one another. This is where our phrase, tying the knot, comes from. So religion is really binding. Religion then basically involves tying in two directions, one to something outside of oneself, and it also implies a binding or tying up of things inside ourselves. A religious person binds themselves to something beyond themselves which gives meaning to life, which is bigger than them, and in the process produces a sense of peace, a sense of wholeness in one's own spirit. Royal Rue, a professor of religion emeritus at Luther College in Iowa, has a book where he explores the functions of religion. And the title of the book is Religion is Not About God. In it, he explains that religion provides a person with two kinds of important truths for their life. One cosmological, an explanation of the universe, and one moral, something ethical for one's own life. He says cosmological truth is a sense of meaning for a person and meaning of the universe. And moral truth is the way one should live their life in light of this larger truth. Now, normally in traditional religions, creation stories provide both senses of this truth, universal and moral. For example, in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, you have a description of the ultimate meaning of the universe as a creation by a loving God who makes the world good and we are to treat it reverently, but who also puts his or her image in all humans to make them sacred as well. And so in that story, the cosmological and moral truth come together. The universe has meaning, humans are part of it, and God's image is in all people, which means we have to treat every single person with reverence. So Rue's definition of religion as providing cosmological and moral truth, however, need not always require a belief in a God to fulfill those two functions. There are examples, in other words, of secular religions. Buddhism has been traditionally considered a religion, but it does not believe in a God. It does, however, provide the twofold tying or binding that religion achieves. It provides a cosmological truth about the universe and a moral truth by which to live one's life with others. It binds one to something larger than the self and provides a sense of peace for one's own spirit. Buddhism's equivalent of a narrative core or creation story is that the universe is an eternal field of codependent arising. Namely, all beings come into existence and pass out of existence in a constantly changing universe where all beings are intrinsically linked to one another. There is no permanent, unchanging, separate soul in humans, but rather a deeper bond with all existent beings of which humans are conscious. So this provides Buddhists with both a cosmological truth, a sense of meaning of what the universe is all about, how it's structured, and a moral truth. Since if we are all part of something larger and not separate individual beings, we have to love and respect everyone as part of our own being. That's the moral truth. The binding to a larger reality is provided by Buddhism and results in a sense of inner peace and belonging for the individual who is never ultimately alone, but part of something larger than oneself. Science can also function as a religion for some people. It provides a sense of ultimate meaning in that it teaches we are all part of something larger and intimately connected to nature and to all life forms. Evolution explains how this relationship of life originated in changes over time. Survival of the fittest and natural adaptation to one's environment has functioned for millennia before humans appeared. But now we are part not only of this ongoing larger process, but we have responsibility to guide and protect it, since we are aware of beings guided not only by instinct, but also by a certain amount of free choice. This cosmological truth provided by evolution brings with it moral responsibility to act and respect and have reverence for all life forms, lest we annihilate them and our own species by our own selfish consumerism. Buddhism and science are but two examples of being religious without a belief in God, since both systems provide humans with a sense of meaning and ethics, the two most important functions of religion according to Professor Royal Rue. I think you heard in today's readings also a religious dimension. Emerson was not a traditionally religious man, but his words that we hear this morning about the human family being bathed with an element of love like a fine ether provides a profound cosmological truth about the unity of humans and the sacredness of life. As a result of this truth, he can say, silently, we warmly rejoice to be with and must read the language of these wandering eye-beams around us. Beautifully said. The cosmological truth he proclaims has built into it a moral truth, respect and love for everyone, even, as he says, the many we see on the street. This truly is religion at its best. When Sarah Campbell in the second reading asked for a child's eyes, that we may receive the beauty and freshness of this day like a sunrise, she is seeking the vision that Emerson proclaims, being able to see with the eyes of our spirit the profound truth of our unity with the universe and with one another. This is also a religious hope and yearning, to be able to sense something greater of which we are a part and experience a joy that this brings. The story that Steve read of Ping and the empty pot illustrates a similar lesson. A child can often see clearly what is important in life and how critical telling the truth is for the sake of the integrity of the whole community. Would that some of our political leaders understood that lesson. The last reading that I did from the letter of James does come from a traditional religious scripture, but it points in a similar direction as the other readings. Acceptance of abstract doctrines are not accepting living truths that inspire us to sense our deeper bonds with others and nurture in us responsibility to care for them. Believing in a God is not enough if this is not accompanied with responsibility to those in need. And yet, countless numbers of traditionally religious people in our own society at this moment who claim to be believing in a God do not practice this love effectively enough. Were they to do so, our culture would not be paralyzed with political polarization or support now for a new healthcare proposal that, in effect, no matter what it says, reduces effective coverage for the poor and those with pre-existing conditions will find it very hard to pay for it, and gives, in effect, an $8 billion tax break for the rich. That's the result of it. What kind of religion is that? Where is the cosmological truth and the moral truth there? What kind of meaning is this kind of religion binding one to other than selfish deception? Religion without God. In my course about the problem of God in Ripon, I use a book. I didn't bring it up here, sorry. Thank you, Audrey. I have all my students read this book in the advanced seminar, The Problem of God. It's called God, Reason, and Religion by Stephen Kahn, who is a philosopher. And he observes in this short book that arguments for or against the existence of a God are really not fully rationally convincing. If God exists, reason alone cannot prove or disprove it, since there are good arguments on both sides. He argues, however, that one can be religious without belief in a God, since many of the elements in traditional religions can be practiced by non-believers. Kahn believes that the elements common to many traditional religions, morality, ritual, prayer, community, have analogs in the lives of many agnostics and atheists. One can be moral without believing in God by following an informed conscience. One can practice rituals in one's daily life that are not related to organized religion, such as family, national holidays, traditions. One can develop spirituality not by prayer, but by meditation. One can be sustained in one's values by belonging to communities that share such ideals. Is this not what Unitarianism is all about? Kahn concludes his book with a Yiddish tale written by the eminent Polish Jewish writer I.L. Peretz, who lived in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And the tale is entitled, If Not Higher. And I'd like to read you that tale now. This is how he ends his book. Every Friday morning at the time of the penitential prayers, the prayers asking God for the forgiveness of sins, the rabbi of Nemirov in the Ukraine would vanish. He was nowhere to be seen, neither in the synagogue nor in the two study houses. And he was certainly not at home. His door stood open. Whoever wished could go in and out. No one would steal from the rabbi, but not a living creature was within. Where could the rabbi be? Where should he be? In heaven, no doubt. A rabbi has plenty of business to take care of before the days of awe, which is Rosh Hashanah, the days of penance for sin once a year. Jews, God bless them, need livelihood, peace, health, and good matches. They want to be pious and good, but our sins are so great, and Satan of the thousand eyes watches the whole earth from one end to the other. What he sees, he reports, he denounces, informs. Who can help us if not the rabbi? That's what the people thought. But once a Litvak, a Jew from Lithuania, came, and he laughed. You know the Litvaks. They think of the holy books, but stuff themselves with other things. So this Litvak points to a passage in the Gemara in the Talmud, it sticks in your eyes, where it is written that even Moses, our teacher, did not ascend to heaven during his lifetime, but remained suspended 2.5 below. So go argue with the Litvak. So where can the rabbi be when he disappears? That's not my business, said the Litvak. Yet all the while, the Litvak is trying to find out where the rabbi is. That same night, right after the evening prayers, the Litvak steals into the rabbi's room. He slides under the rabbi's bed and he waits. He'll watch all night and discover where the rabbi vanishes and what he does during the penitential prayers on the Sabbath. Someone else might have gotten drowsy and fallen asleep, but a Litvak is never at a loss. He recites a whole tractate of the Talmud by heart. At dawn, he hears the call to prayers. The rabbi has already been awake for a long time. The Litvak has heard him groaning for a whole hour. Whoever has heard the rabbi of Nemirov groan knows how much sorrow for all Israel, how much suffering lies in each groan. A man's heart might break bearing it. But a Litvak is made of iron. He listens, and he remains where he is under the bed. The rabbi, long life to him, lies on the bed, and the Litvak is under the bed. Then the Litvak hears the beds in the house begin to creak. He hears people jumping up out of their beds, mumbling a few Jewish words, pouring water on their fingernails, banging doors. Everyone is left. It is again quiet and dark. A bit of light from the moon shines through the shutters. Afterward, the Litvak admitted that when he found himself alone with the rabbi, a great fear took hold of him. Goose pimples spread across his skin, and the roots of his side locks prickled him like needles. A trifle to be alone with the rabbi at the time of the penitential prayers? But a Litvak is stubborn. So he quivered like a fish in water and remained where he was under the bed. Finally, the rabbi arises. First, he does his morning prayers. Then he goes to the clothes closet and takes out a bundle of peasant clothes. Linen trousers, high boots, a coat, a big felt hat, a long, wide leather belt studded with brass nails. The rabbi gets dressed. From his coat pocket dangles the end of a heavy peasant rope. The rabbi goes out, and the Litvak follows him. On the way, the rabbi stops in the kitchen, bends down, takes an axe from under the bed, and puts it into his belt and leaves the house. The Litvak trembles, but he continues to follow at a distance. The hushed dread of the days of awe hangs over the dark streets. That means Rosh Hashanah is coming soon. Every once in a while, a cry arises from a minyan reciting the penitential prayers or from a sickbed. The rabbi hugs the sides of the street, keeping to the shade of the houses. He glides from house to house, and the Litvak after him. The Litvak hears the sound of his heartbeat mingling with the sound of the rabbi's heavy steps, but he keeps on going and follows the rabbi to the outskirts of the town. A small wood stands just outside the town. The rabbi enters the wood. He takes 30 or 40 steps and stops by a small tree. The Litvak, overcome with amazement, watches the rabbi take the axe out of his belt and strike the tree. He tears the tree creak and fall. The rabbi chops the tree into logs and the logs into sticks. Then he makes a bundle of the wood and ties it with the rope in his pocket. He puts the bundle of wood on his back, shoves the axe back into the belt, and he goes back into town. He stops at a back street beside a small broken-down shack, and he knocks at the window. "Who is there?" asks a frightened voice. The Litvak recognizes it as the voice of a sick, old Jewish woman. "I," answers the rabbi in the accent of a peasant. "Who is I?" Again the rabbi answers in Russian, "Vasil." "Who is Vasil? What do you want?" "I have wood to sell, very cheap." And not waiting for the woman's reply, he goes into the house. The Litvak steals in after him. In the gray light of early morning, he sees the poor room with broken, miserable furnishings. A sick woman wrapped in rags lies on the bed. She complains bitterly, "Buy? How can I buy? Where will a poor widow get money?" "I'll lend it to you," answers the supposed Vasil. "It's only 6 cents. "And how will I ever repay you back?" asked the poor woman, groaning. "Foolish one," says the rabbi reproachfully. "See, you are a poor sick Jew, and I am ready to trust you with a little wood. I am sure you'll pay. While you have such great and mighty God, and you don't trust him for 6 cents? "Who will kindle the fire?" asked the widow. "Have I the strength to get up? My son is at work." "I'll kindle the fire," answers the rabbi. As the rabbi put the wood into the oven, he recited in a groan the first portion of the penitential prayers. As he kindled the fire and the wood burned brightly, he recited a bit more joyously the second portion of the penitential prayers. When the fire was set, he recited the third portion, and then he shut the stove. The Litvak who saw all this became a disciple of the rabbi. And ever after, when another disciple tells how the rabbi of Nemirov ascends to heaven at the time of the penitential prayers, the Litvak does not laugh. He only adds quietly, if not higher. I really identify with this story. I, like the rabbi of Nemirov, do believe in a God. I do practice a formal religion, and I take its teaching seriously and I participate in its rituals, as did the rabbi in this story. However, at the heart of what I believe Jesus taught is compassion for those who suffer, just like the rabbi thought. The God he experienced is a God of love for everyone and is present in all persons. In the parable of the Last Judgment in Matthew, Jesus taught the same thing. That whenever we encounter someone who suffers, we encounter something beyond ourselves, something powerful, something he calls God. So belief in doctrines are not central to that rabbi's life, nor to Jesus' life, nor to the Buddha's life, nor to Gandhi's life. What's central is to show love for others. And if you do show love to others, one has had an experience of something transcendent, whether they call it that or not. In the first letter of John in the Christian scriptures, the author says, God is love, and those who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in them. Believing in God is not as important as living with love, for that truly is an experience of God, whether one calls it that or not.